Your business made limitless. That's Life Unlimited.
Even the mighty might not see it coming. It's prediabetes, and it captures 1 in 3 adults. But you can escape. Take the 1-minute prediabetes risk test to know where you stand and prevent or delay type 2 diabetes. Be your own hero on smartphones everywhere at doihaveprediabetes.org.
Spectrum News Plus. Local stories, connecting communities. Streaming now on the Spectrum News app and free with your Spectrum subscription.
I'm Sharon Tazwell. Here's your Spectrum News in 90. Kamala Harris is set to deliver what her campaign is calling a closing arguments address tonight in Washington, D.C. The rally will be held at the site of Donald Trump's rally on January 6, 2021. The vice president says she will aim to sway any undecided voters. Meanwhile, Trump is back in Pennsylvania Tuesday as he looks to win over Latino voters in the battleground states. The former president is defending a controversial rally at Madison Square Garden over the weekend that's still drawing criticism over what many saw as offensive remarks.
Politicians that have been doing this for a long time, 30 and 40 years, said there's never been an event so beautiful. It was like a love fest, an absolute love fest, and it was my honor to be involved.
Election officials nationwide are increasing security amid concerns at the drop box. A manhunt is underway after at least 3 ballot box fires in Oregon and Washington state. And in Florida, a ballot box was found by a driver on a street. Nearly 50 million Americans have already voted in the election.
We are aware of the incidents across the country where ballot boxes have been tampered with, and we will not stand for any instance of voter intimidation, of disruption in this electoral process.
Those are your headlines. Now, here's a look at your weather on the ones.
Look at the big picture. Quite a few alerts, some of these wind alerts and red flag warnings, but we're also seeing rain and snow across parts of the Rockies, and ahead of that, some warm air. Now that front that's coming in, this cold front, could spur up some strong and severe storms in parts of the plains as we go through the overnight, and then that potential is also going to be there for tomorrow as well, with mainly damaging wind gusts and hail and even some isolated tornadic activity in parts of the Midwest. The tropics are quiet for now, but we do have an area to watch.
The 2024 presidential election front and center as we are just 1 week away from polls opening nationwide. And both Donald Trump and Kamala Harris aim to reach as many voters as possible as time runs out. Thanks for joining us. I'm Sharon Tazwell. The former president is back in Pennsylvania Tuesday, campaigning in a region that hasn't voted for a Republican president since 1988. But the Trump campaign tells Spectrum News the former president is looking to change that. More on the Trump campaign in a bit, but first, Vice President Kamala Harris will deliver closing remarks at the Ellipse in Washington, D.C. It's the same location where Trump rallied supporters on January 6th ahead of violent riots at the Capitol. We have team coverage breaking down yet another busy day on the trail. Spectrum's Taylor Popolars is in Allentown, Pennsylvania at the Trump rally. Cassie Simeon kicks off our coverage in D.C. ahead of what many are calling a big night for the vice president.
Vice President Kamala Harris will speak from the Ellipse in Washington, D.C., the same place where former President Donald Trump inspired thousands of his supporters on January 6, 2021, to march on the U.S. Capitol, where they tried to stop the certification of the 2020 election. Her campaign hopes her speech will be a defining moment, creating a stark contrast for voters between the two candidates, convincing them to, quote, turn the page on the Trump era.
He was a totally unhinged president, that he was dangerous, that when the mob was attacking the Capitol on January 6th and they begged for him to stop it, he did nothing. He turned up the TV. So we know that his second term is going to be even worse than that, because those people who were holding him back the last time, they're gone now. And many of them have endorsed the vice president because they know how serious the threat of Donald Trump is.
Harris's campaign says the speech will not solely focus on Trump and the threat she claims he represents. Harris is also expected to strike an optimistic tone focused on her economic policy and health care, arguing that she will work to improve their lives while Trump is only focused on himself and his enemies. Trump tried to get ahead of Harris's speech, offering a rebuttal to reporters at his Mar-a-Lago resort earlier today.
And she's running on a campaign of demoralization and really a campaign of destruction. But really, perhaps more than anything else, it's a campaign of hate.
Cassie Simeon joins us now from Washington. At the start of tonight's speech by Harris, Cassie, this is by far not the final campaign event for the vice president. What is next for the Harris campaign after tonight?
Well, she's going to take the message from this speech on the road to the battleground states over the next several days, trying to reach those undecided voters. I spoke with a campaign official before, and he said, listen, we know this race is going to be very close. It's going to come down to margin of error. We need to reach as many undecided voters as possible over the next several days. That is who this speech is directed towards tonight, and she's going to continue to spread that message over the next several days, Sharon.
All right, Cassie Simeon in Washington. Thanks. As for the former president, Donald Trump is set to rally in Pennsylvania this evening. In a city with a large Puerto Rican population ahead of his visit, Trump defended a controversial rally in New York City last weekend. Spectrum's Taylor Popolars is on the ground in Allentown with more, including how the former president is pushing forward.
Lehigh County has the second largest Puerto Rican population in Pennsylvania, and many people here are still talking about comedian Tony Hinchcliffe's comment at Sunday's Trump rally that Puerto Rico is a floating island of garbage. Trump summoned reporters to his resort in Palm Beach, Florida earlier today to defend the event.
The love in that room. It was breathtaking.
Trump did not condemn Hinchcliffe's comment, but did claim to ABC News he doesn't know the comedian. Trump also did not address comments by other speakers at Sunday's rally, including descriptions of Vice President Kamala Harris as the Antichrist and the devil, and remarks that mocked Harris's biracial heritage. Outside the venue for Trump's rally here in Allentown, protesters like Ephraim Davila showed up to denounce Hinchcliffe's comments. He made a sign that read "Independence and all Puerto Ricans for Kamala Harris."
I might have been undecided. Back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. But that was it for me. And I'm voting for Kamala Harris.
On Monday, local Trump fans showed up to a Get Out the Vote event that Donald Trump Jr. attended that featured campaign signs specifically for local Puerto Ricans. Many told us they were troubled by Hinchcliffe's joke, but will still back Trump because they support his positions on the economy and immigration.
I think it was definitely poor timing. It was absolutely bad timing. I was happy his campaign said something immediately. I do think he needs to address it.
Joe Vichot, the Lehigh County GOP chair, called Hinchcliffe's comment lame and questioned how Trump's team missed the mark on vetting him beforehand.
It was at a Trump rally. It was a speaker that the team, not Trump himself, picked to go out there. But those are the words of that comedian. That is not the words of the Republican Party. That is not the words of Donald Trump.
Taylor Popolars joins us now. Taylor, Lehigh County, where you are now, has not voted for a Republican for president since 1988. But Trump is hoping to change that this year. So what's his plan?
Sharon, it's a really fascinating statistic, and you have to wonder, why is he coming here with a week to go in this election to a place that's been traditionally blue? But the Trump team has told me they felt like they were making inroads, especially with Hispanic and Latino voters in this county. There's a really significant Puerto Rican population. That's why the timing of this Tony Hinchcliffe scandal is so kind of striking. It's going to be really interesting to see what Trump has to say tonight and if he makes direct appeals to Puerto Ricans here. But his campaign is doing direct outreach, and the local GOP chair told me he's still confident in their ground game and that people really care about immigration and the economy. Sharon?
All right. Taylor Popolars from the battleground state of Pennsylvania. Thanks so much. Spectrum News is your place to be for election night. We have coast-to-coast coverage as voters make their voice heard nationwide. It all starts at 7 p.m. Eastern. You can also watch for free on the Spectrum News app. Concerns over election and voter interference. Just ahead on Spectrum News, what federal authorities are doing to battle those fears.
2024 election will decide who leads our nation and the balance of power in Congress, impacting all of us. From Capitol Hill to the Oval Office, let Spectrum News be your resource for balanced, in-depth coverage with our dedicated experts in local politics. Strengthening democracy by informing your community. That's our mission. Available on all of your favorite devices, exclusively on Spectrum.
What if you never had to worry about what you could do? Because you could do anything. Anywhere could be the center of everywhere. And boundaries only existed to be pushed. So the only limit you faced was how big you could dream. What would you do then? Some pretty cool stuff, I bet. Yeah, that'd be some life. That'd be life unlimited.
I'm an ex-drug dealer, and I'll be your sub today. Two milligrams of fentanyl can be lethal. A lethal dose is in here. Who gets it, I won't know.
It's cheap, it's potent, and it's profitable. The sad reality is, fentanyl is being mixed into everything now.
More kitchen now.
You're not gonna get it all right. Just make sure you nail the big stuff.
Mama!
Like making sure your kids are in the right seat for their age and size. Get it right at nhtsa.gov/the-right-seat.
Thanks for joining us. I'm meteorologist Brittany Hamilton, and we're starting off with the departure from normal. So this tells you how much above average or below average some of these spots are for this time of the year. Well, you can see as we look at Wednesday and Thursday in Chicago, between 10 and 25 degrees above average in some spots. And then we see a little bit of a cool down by Friday. Above average temperatures expected for a lot of the East Coast, but we do see a drop in temperatures across the plains. And that's because we're watching a front that's coming in, and this front could bring some strong and even severe storms for parts of the plains and the Midwest. As we look at satellite and radar, still dealing with some snow across parts of the Rockies as well as some rain. Ahead of it, there's quite a bit of wind, so we've had fire weather danger across much of the plains as we've gone through today. But as we're looking at our severe weather outlook for Wednesday, you're noticing you see this area here in this orange brown color. That is an enhanced risk. That's a 3 on a scale of 1 to 5. So we could see some stronger storms in that region coming out of Kansas, going into Missouri, Kansas City included in that. Damaging wind gusts, hail, but also some isolated spin-ups not out of the question with this system. And as we look at the future cast by Wednesday afternoon, this is 4 p.m. Central, you can see those storms moving through parts of the Midwest, that line becoming a little bit stronger. And as we go through Wednesday night, this is where some of the strongest of those storms will likely be. Moving through Missouri, you also have some storms that'll be moving through parts of the upper Midwest, maybe not quite as strong, but still under a marginal risk, a 1 on a scale of 1 to 5. Now, as we get into Thursday overnight, going into early 2 o'clock in the morning, 3, 4 o'clock, this all starts to head to the east, kind of losing some of its steam as it continues to move east. But there could be some spots that still deal with a little bit of rain by the time you wake up on Halloween.
Concerns at polling places are growing following reports of arson in ballot drop boxes in Washington state and Oregon Monday. Federal authorities are searching for suspects and looking to reassure voters they will be safe and their ballots will be secure. Spectrum's Ariel Wessler explains the security efforts to battle fears of election and voter interference.
There have been at least 3 fires so far, one in Portland, Oregon, and 2 in Vancouver, Washington. Election officials say the fire in Vancouver destroyed hundreds of ballots, while a fire suppression system on the Portland drop boxes minimized damage there. Investigators found incendiary devices that they say connect the fires in both states, and they're looking for this suspect vehicle, an early 2000s dark-colored Volvo sedan with an unknown tag number and missing front plate. City and election officials in both Portland and Vancouver say they're bumping up police patrols and enhancing security around their ballot boxes moving forward. Other states like Nevada are touting new technology to better protect the process.
Every mail ballot has an individual tracker barcode on it.
In South Florida, a driver found a box containing early voting ballots. It fell into the street after a worker forgot to lock the back of a truck. While election officials say the incident was unintentional, the worker was terminated. Poll worker safety also a high priority.
We passed the Election Protector Bill, which made it a felony to harass or intimidate election workers.
And Arizona has invested millions of dollars into securing its tabulation centers.
We have added new fencing, badging. We've taken other measures to make sure that everyone is safe and they can focus on their important jobs.
A job already underway with millions of people voting early in most states.
The best thing you can do to support our elections workers is to vote early. So please keep those ballots rolling in.
The FBI, according to its field office in Seattle, says it's running a separate but parallel investigation into the ballot box arson. Vancouver is the biggest city in Washington's 3rd congressional district, which is expected to be one of the closest U.S. House races in the country. Ariel Wessler, Spectrum News.
Politics can often be a family affair, but here in 2024, there have been some interesting dynamics when it comes to the children of the frontrunners. Joining us now with more is Alex Cohen. Alex, Donald Trump's oldest daughter, Ivanka, was once a top aide and one of his biggest public supporters. And while she says she still supports her father, she's taken a step back, right?
She most certainly has, and it's been very interesting to see. No one is exactly sure why that is, but she and her husband, Jared Kushner, seem to be having a different life now, well outside of Washington, D.C., focusing on their business interests instead. And there might be a couple of different reasons behind this. Politics is a very tough field. She's got children and surely their lives that she wants to think about. And also, this is in many ways a very new and different campaign. And I think what we're seeing here in 2024 is an opportunity for others within the Trump family, including his daughter-in-law, Lara Trump, who of course is the co-chair of the Republican National Committee, as well as his young son, Barron Trump, who apparently is the mastermind behind many of these podcasts with influencers that we've been seeing the former president do. 2024 might be more of a year for them.
All right, and on the other side, Kamala Harris's stepdaughter, Ella Emhoff, has been on the campaign trail despite a busy fashion career of her own. How has she been able to balance both?
It's been very interesting in a year where concerns were raised by Vice Presidential nominee J.D. Vance about women without children, and he put the vice president in that camp. And Ella Emhoff, the stepdaughter of Kamala Harris, said, no, I am in fact her child, and has been out there on the campaign trail. She is both a fashion designer, an artist, and a model who had really built up a name for herself, and now is out there with messages about voter registration, how to cast a mail-in ballot. She has been out there on the campaign trail in support of her stepmother, and she's got a very kind of edgy, hip image, which might well resonate with young voters, who, as everyone knows, is a very important demographic to reach in this election season.
Yeah, when you have a parent in politics, it really is a family affair. Alex Cohen, thanks so much.
Thank you.
If you have questions before casting your ballot, download our comprehensive voter guide. Just scan the QR code on your screen to get it for free. From finding your polling location to previewing your ballot, our guide has you covered. Turning to the Middle East, the World Food Program is warning of catastrophic consequences after Israel passed laws banning the UN's relief agency for Palestinians. The global agency warns 90% of Gaza's population will face severe food insecurity by November, adding it will only get worse as winter approaches.
We have a population here
that's on its knees, going through absolutely untold misery and suffering, and the role that UNRWA is playing here is unprecedented.
Israel launched new attacks Tuesday in northern Gaza and Lebanon, killing more than 150 people. As tensions between Israel and Hezbollah stay tense, the militant group named a new Secretary General following the death of Hassan Nasrallah last month. Halloween is being haunted by scary high chocolate prices. Coming up on Spectrum News, while you have to spend a little more to hand out candy to trick-or-treaters.
For the millions of school-aged children across the country, the state of their schools can have a lasting impact on their health and well-being.
The majority of school districts aren't doing comprehensive regular water quality testing.
As CO2 levels rise in a space, cognitive function takes a direct decline.
We visit 2 school districts working to create safe and healthy environments for their students.
Watch Exploring Your Health, Curing Our Classrooms, available on the Spectrum News app.
Never have to worry about thinking too big? Because you have a connection that's ready for anything. That's Life Unlimited. That's Spectrum.
I tell my son, I love you every single day. I love you. Now, my dad has never said that to me. Not because he doesn't love me, but because culturally it wasn't comfortable for him. Now that he's a grandfather, he says, I love you to my son every time he sees him. My advice to all the fathers out there, forget the cultural restrictions. They grow up way too fast for you to waste even a single precious moment.
Food isn't just fuel to live, it's fuel to grow. My family relied on public assistance to help provide meals for us. These meals fueled my involvement in theater and the arts as a child, which fostered my love for acting. The Feeding America network of food banks helps millions of people put food on the table. When people are fed, futures are nourished. Join the movement to end hunger, and together we can open endless possibilities for people to thrive. Visit feedingamerica.org/actnow.
Welcome back to your Weather on the Ones. We're taking a look at our forecast focus. Well, the storm system that's moving through parts of the Rockies also has a front associated with it, and ahead of it you have warmer air, you have some instability that's going to allow for that severe threat for Wednesday. And then we are keeping an eye on the Pacific Northwest, another system moving in, likely to bring some rain and snow once again as we get into the end of the week and the weekend. Still seeing rain and snow across areas like Wyoming and Colorado, as well as Utah. Some rain across parts of the northern tier and the upper Midwest, and a lot of wind elsewhere in this region in the plains. But as we look at that severe weather outlook again for Wednesday, you notice that higher spot here, a 3 on a scale of 1 to 5 for parts of Kansas and Missouri, and even down through Oklahoma, a 2 on a scale of 1 to 5 for areas including Dallas. So again, you have to think that this may not be the highest risk you've ever seen, but there is a chance that we do get a few strong and severe storms that have damaging winds and hail. Also some isolated spin-ups not out of the question. Now as we look at the future cast, a little bit more zoomed in here, going till about 5 o'clock on Wednesday Central Time, you can see these storms developing. Now, I do think that the storms a little bit more to the north may not be quite as strong. And as we go through the evening hours and into the overnight, this is where some of the strongest storms will be coming in for areas like Missouri and Kansas and Oklahoma. Then as we go past midnight into Thursday, we'll notice not as much activity. Still some rain there. On the backside of things, some cooler air wrapping around, maybe bringing some wintry mix for areas like Wisconsin as well as Minnesota. And then eventually that's going to continue to move to the east and then start to clear out. So as we look at Wednesday, you can tell where this front is showing up here as we get into Wednesday afternoon. Temperatures in the 70s in Kansas City. And then we see a pretty decent drop going into Thursday, back into the 50s, some cooler air in the west as well. 52 for Billings, 49 for Boise. And we see a little bit of a cool down as well across the East Coast. And then we'll see temperatures even cooler in some spots on Friday, 54 for Chicago, still holding on to some warmth down in Atlanta with temperatures in the 80s. In terms of the tropics, we do have one area that we're keeping an eye on. It does have a moderate chance of development over the next 7 days, so we will continue to monitor this area in the Caribbean Sea.
McDonald's will hold a call with investors about the E. coli outbreak keeping customers out of its restaurants. According to a company that tracks foot traffic to restaurants and retailers, visits to McDonald's went down 10% nationwide last week, 33% in Colorado, where the outbreak was most prevalent. On Sunday, the company said all the contaminated products related to the outbreak have been taken out of the supply chain and restaurants. New data shows job openings fell to pre-pandemic levels in September. That's according to the Bureau of Labor Statistics. There were about 7.4 million unfilled jobs on the last day of September. That's a drop from the 7.8 million openings back in August. Officials say the decline in openings were in healthcare, social assistance, and government positions. As we enter Halloween, people are seeing scary high chocolate candy prices at grocery stores. It stems from poor crop seasons in the world's top cocoa-producing regions. Spectrum News anchor Carla Redd explains why you may have to spend a little more this spooky season.
This Halloween, your favorite chocolate treat may seem a little smaller, or there may be fewer in the bag.
If people want chocolate, it's still going to be there. Production is still going, but it's just going to cost more.
That's because of the supply of a key ingredient, cocoa. David Branch of Wells Fargo's Agri-Food Institute says recent years have brought tough growing conditions to West Africa, responsible for more than 70% of the world's cocoa supply.
The major cocoa producing region of West Africa has essentially had 3 years of declining production in crops due mainly to multiple weather events that just seem to be piling on.
The International Cocoa Organization projected in August that global cocoa production this season would fall by 14.2%. The supply squeeze felt by major confectioners who had also dealt with higher sugar prices before they fell back this year.
We've seen sugar prices this year drop from the highs we've seen the last 2 years, so that's a positive note for this.
So confectioners have been more creative this Halloween, swapping out layers of chocolate for things like wafers and nuts, combining chocolate and non-chocolate items in variety bags, and making treats a little smaller. The good news, though, for chocolate lovers, weather conditions have improved for this year's crops, which will eventually boost supply. Carla Redd, Spectrum News.
I'm Sharon Tazwell. Thanks for watching. Your Spectrum News in 90s coming up after this short break. Stay with us.
Friday nights, The Big Deal with Errol Lewis, where Spectrum News' local political journalists break down the most important issues shaping our nation.
Here's the deal. People need a place to explore national issues that have an impact on their community. To understand those issues better, we're bringing together our team of local political journalists from across the country to break down what's happening. So join us every week to catch up on the key stories making a big difference across the nation and in your local community.
Watch The Big Deal with Errol Lewis Friday nights at 9 Eastern, 8 Central on Spectrum News Plus. Available on all of your favorite devices, exclusively on Spectrum.
At Spectrum Enterprise, we give over 80% of the Fortune 500 the technology solutions they need to meet their growing business demands. Whether it's ultra-fast connectivity, seamless transactions, safe and secure data, or reliable always-on technology. These businesses demand better, and we're here to deliver it. Get a network you can rely on with our 100% uptime SLA guarantee.
Whether it's our stories, the warmth of our laugh, or our family's secret sauce, we all bring something different to the table. So make some space. The power of connection is waiting right outside your comfort zone. Learn how you can help strengthen your community at belongingbeginswithus.org/teamup.
Our journey towards improving mental health doesn't always present a clear path. Every Thursday on Your Mental Health, we listen to voices across our communities, discussing the challenges of everyday life and presenting accessible resources to guide us along the path to our well-being, providing hope and empowering choices that light the way to a healthier you.
Your Mental Health with Dr. Nicole Clark, Thursdays on Spectrum News Plus, available on all your favorite devices. Spectrum News Plus. Local stories, connecting communities. Streaming now on the Spectrum News app and free with your Spectrum subscription.
I'm Sharon Tazwell. Here's your Spectrum News in 90. Kamala Harris is set to deliver what her campaign is calling a closing argument address tonight in Washington, D.C. The rally will be held at the site of Donald Trump's rally on January 6, 2021. The vice president says she will aim to sway any undecided voters. Meanwhile, Trump is back in Pennsylvania Tuesday as he looks to win over Latino voters in the battleground states. The former president is defending a controversial rally at Madison Square Garden over the weekend that's still drawing criticism over what many saw as offensive remarks.
Politicians that have been doing this for a long time, 30 and 40 years, said there's never been an event so beautiful. It was like a love fest, an absolute love fest, and it was my honor to be involved.
Election officials nationwide are increasing security amid concerns at the drop box. A manhunt is underway after at least 3 ballot box fires in Oregon and Washington state. And in Florida, a ballot box was found by a driver on a street. Nearly 50 million Americans have already voted in the election.
We are aware of the incidents across the country where ballot boxes have been tampered with, and we will not stand for any instance of voter intimidation, of disruption in this electoral process.
Those are your headlines. Now, here's a look at your weather on the ones.
Look at the big picture. Quite a few alerts, some of these wind alerts and red flag warnings, but we're also seeing rain and snow across parts of the Rockies, and ahead of that, some warm air. Now that front that's coming in, this cold front, could spur up some strong and severe storms in parts of the plains as we go through the overnight, and then that potential is also going to be there for tomorrow as well, with mainly damaging wind gusts and hail and even some isolated tornadic activity in parts of the Midwest. The tropics are quiet for now, but we do have an area to watch.
The 2024 presidential election front and center as we are just 1 week away from polls opening nationwide. And both Donald Trump and Kamala Harris aim to reach as many voters as possible as time runs out. Thanks for joining us. I'm Sharon Tazwell. The former president is back in Pennsylvania Tuesday, campaigning in a region that hasn't voted for a Republican president since 1988. But the Trump campaign tells Spectrum News the former president is looking to change that. More on the Trump campaign in a bit, but first, Vice President Kamala Harris will deliver closing remarks at the Ellipse in Washington, D.C. It's the same location where Trump rallied supporters on January 6th ahead of violent riots at the Capitol. We have team coverage breaking down yet another busy day on the trail. Spectrum's Taylor Popolars is in Allentown, Pennsylvania at the Trump rally. Cassie Simeon kicks off our coverage in D.C. ahead of what many are calling a big night for the vice president.
Vice President Kamala Harris will speak from the Ellipse in Washington, D.C., the same place where former President Donald Trump inspired thousands of his supporters on January 6, 2021, to march on the U.S. Capitol, where they tried to stop the certification of the 2020 election. Her campaign hopes her speech will be a defining moment, creating a stark contrast for voters between the two candidates, convincing them to, quote, turn the page on the Trump era.
He was a totally unhinged president, that he was dangerous, that when the mob was attacking the Capitol on January 6th and they begged for him to stop it, he did nothing. He turned up the TV. So we know that his second term is going to be even worse than that, because those people who were holding him back the last time, they're gone now. And many of them have endorsed the vice president because they know how serious the threat of Donald Trump is.
Harris's campaign says the speech will not solely focus on Trump and the threat she claims he represents. Harris is also expected to strike an optimistic tone focused on her economic policy and health care, arguing that she will work to improve their lives while Trump is only focused on himself and his enemies. Trump tried to get ahead of Harris's speech, offering a rebuttal to reporters at his Mar-a-Lago resort earlier today.
And she's running on a campaign of demoralization and really a campaign of destruction. But really, perhaps more than anything else, it's a campaign of hate.
Cassie Simeon joins us now from Washington. At the start of tonight's speech by Harris, Cassie, this is by far not the final campaign event for the vice president. What is next for the Harris campaign after tonight?
Well, she's going to take the message from this speech on the road to the battleground states over the next several days, trying to reach those undecided voters. I spoke with a campaign official before, and he said, listen, we know this race is going to be very close. It's going to come down to margin of error. We need to reach as many undecided voters as possible over the next several days. That is who this speech is directed towards tonight, and she's going to continue to spread that message over the next several days, Sharon.
All right, Cassie Simeon in Washington. Thanks. As for the former president, Donald Trump is set to rally in Pennsylvania this evening. In a city with a large Puerto Rican population ahead of his visits, Trump defended a controversial rally in New York City last weekend. Spectrum's Taylor Popolars is on the ground in Allentown with more, including how the former president is pushing forward.
Lehigh County has the second largest Puerto Rican population in Pennsylvania, and many people here are still talking about comedian Tony Hinchcliffe's comment at Sunday's Trump rally that Puerto Rico is a floating island of garbage. Trump summoned reporters to his resort in Palm Beach, Florida earlier today to defend the event.
The love in that room. It was breathtaking.
Trump did not condemn Hinchcliffe's comment, but did claim to ABC News he doesn't know the comedian. Trump also did not address comments by other speakers at Sunday's rally, including descriptions of Vice President Kamala Harris as the Antichrist and the devil, and remarks that mocked Harris's biracial heritage. Outside the venue for Trump's rally here in Allentown, protesters like Efren Davila showed up to denounce Hinchcliffe's comments. He made a sign that read "Independence and all Puerto Ricans for Kamala Harris."
I might have been undecided. Back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. But that was it for me. And I'm voting for Kamala Harris.
On Monday, local Trump fans showed up to a Get Out the Vote event that Donald Trump Jr. attended that featured campaign signs specifically for local Puerto Ricans. Many told us they were troubled by Hinchcliffe's joke, but will still back Trump because they support his positions on the economy and immigration.
I think it was definitely poor timing. It was absolutely bad timing. I was happy his campaign said something immediately. I do think he needs to address it.
Joe Vichot, the Lehigh County GOP chair, called Hinchcliffe's comment lame and questioned how Trump's team missed the mark on
Good evening, I'm Sharon Taz. While you're watching Decision 2024 coverage on Spectrum News, Vice President Kamala Harris is delivering her closing argument at the Ellipse in Washington, D.C. This is where former President Donald Trump held the infamous rally on January 6th before his supporters stormed Capitol Hill. Let's listen in to what Harris is about to say.
Taking the time out of your busy lives. Thank you, everyone. So listen, 1 week from today, you will have have the chance to make a decision that directly impacts your life, the life of your family, and the future of this country we love. And it will probably be the most important vote you ever cast. And this election is more than just a choice between two parties and two different candidates. It is a choice about whether we have a country rooted in freedom for every American or ruled by chaos and division. Many of you watching have probably already cast your ballots. But I know many others are still considering who to vote for, or whether you'll vote at all. So tonight, I will speak to everyone about the choice and the stakes in this election. Look, we know who Donald Trump is. He is the person who stood at this very spot nearly 4 years ago and sent an armed mob to the United States Capitol to overturn the will of the people in a free and fair election. An election that he knew he lost. Americans died as a result of that attack. 140 law enforcement officers were injured because of that attack. And while Donald Trump sat in the White House watching as the violence unfolded on television, he was told by his staff that the mob wanted to kill his own vice president. And Donald Trump responded with 2 words: so what? America, that's who Donald Trump is. And that's who is asking you to give him another 4 years in the Oval Office. Not to focus on your problems, but to focus on his. And Donald Trump has told us his priorities for a second term. He has an enemies list of people he intends to prosecute. He says that one of his highest priorities is to set free the violent extremists who insulted those law enforcement officers on January 6th. Donald Trump intends to use the United States military against American citizens who simply disagree with him. People he calls, quote, the enemy from within. America, this is not a candidate for president who is thinking about how to make your life better. This is someone who is unstable, obsessed with revenge, consumed with grievance, and out for unchecked power. Donald Trump has spent a decade trying to keep the American people divided and afraid of each other. That is who he is. But America, I am here tonight to say that is not who we are. That is not who we are. That is not who we are. You see, what Donald Trump has never understood is that e pluribus unum, out of many, one, isn't just a phrase on a dollar bill. It is a living truth about the heart of our nation. Our democracy doesn't require us to agree on everything. In fact, we like good arguments from time to time. Just think of your own family, right? It's not the American way to not have disagreements. We don't shy away from robust debate. In fact, we like a good debate, don't we? We like a good debate. And the fact that someone disagrees with us does not make them the enemy within. That's right. They are family, neighbors, classmates, co-workers. They are fellow Americans. And as Americans, we rise and fall together. America, for too long, we have been consumed with too much division, chaos, and mutual distrust. And it can be easy then to forget a simple truth. It doesn't have to be this way. It doesn't have to be this way. It is time to stop pointing fingers. We have to stop pointing fingers and start locking arms. It is time to turn the page on the drama and the conflict, the fear and division. It is time for a new generation of leadership in America. To offer that leadership as the next President of the United States of America. Now look, let me say, I recognize this has not been a typical campaign. Even though I've had the honor of serving as your vice president for the last 4 years, I know many of you are still getting to know who I am. Well, let me tell you, I am someone who has spent most of my career outside of Washington, D.C., so I know that not all the good ideas come from here. I am not afraid of tough fights against bad actors and powerful interests, because for decades, as a prosecutor and a top law enforcement officer of our biggest state, I won fights against big banks that ripped off homeowners, against for-profit colleges that scammed veterans and students, against predators who abused women and children, and cartels that trafficked in guns, drugs, and human beings. And I did this work because for as long as I can remember, I have always had an instinct to protect. There's something about people being treated unfairly or overlooked that frankly just gets to me. I don't like it. It's what my mother instilled in me. A drive to hold accountable those who use their wealth or power to take advantage of other people. The drive to protect hardworking Americans who aren't always seen or heard and deserve a voice. And I will tell you that is the kind of president I will be. I'll be honest with you, I'm not perfect. I make mistakes, but here's what I promise you. I will always listen to you, even if you don't vote for me. I will always tell you the truth, even if it is difficult to hear. I will work every day to build consensus and reach compromise to get things done. Chance to fight on your behalf, there is nothing in the world that will stand in my way. So look, in less than 90 days, either Donald Trump or I will be in the Oval Office. Okay? On day one, if elected, Donald Trump would walk into that office with an enemies list. When elected, I will walk in with a to-do list, full of priorities of what I will get done vision for the American people. And I will work with everyone, Democrats, Republicans, and independents, to help Americans who are working hard and still struggling to get ahead. I have been honored to serve as Joe Biden's vice president. But I will bring my own experiences and ideas to the Oval Office. My presidency will be different because the challenges we face are different. Our top priority as a nation 4 years ago was to end the pandemic and rescue the economy. Now, our biggest challenge is to lower costs that were rising even before the pandemic and that are still too high. I get it. I still remember our mother sitting at that yellow Formica table, late at night, cup of tea in hand, a pile of bills in front of her, trying to make it all work. And I've heard from so many of you who are facing even greater financial pressures. Donald Trump's answer to you is the same as it was the last time. Another $1 trillion in tax cuts for billionaires and big corporations. And this time, he will pay for it with a 20% national sales tax on everything you buy that is imported. Think about it. Clothes, food, toys, cell phones. A Trump sales tax that would cost the average family nearly $4,000 more a year. And on top of that, you will pay even more if Donald Trump finally gets his way and repeals the Affordable Care Act, which would throw millions of Americans off their health insurance and take us back to when insurance companies had the power to deny people with pre-existing conditions. Well, we are not going back. We are not going back. We are not going back because we also know Donald Trump would deliver tax cuts to his billionaire donors. I will deliver tax cuts to working people and the middle class. I will make sure you have a chance not just to get by, but to get ahead. Because I believe in honoring the dignity of work. I will enact the first ever federal ban on price gouging on groceries. Cap the price of insulin and limit out-of-pocket prescription costs for all Americans. I will fight to make sure that hardworking Americans can actually afford a place to live. I'll never forget how our mother saved up and how excited she was when she could finally afford to buy our first home. I remember how excited she was. And I know that owning a home is not only a measure of financial security, it's about the pride of your hard work. And as president, I will fight to help first-time home buyers with your down payment, take on the companies that are jacking up rents, and build millions of new homes. For years, we have heard excuses about why America can't build enough housing. Enough with the excuses. I'm going to cut the red tape and work with the private sector and local governments to speed up building and get it done. And the cost of housing isn't the only financial pressure on middle-class families. I have met so many young people who have a natural desire to parent their children well, but not always the resources to do it. So I'll fight for a child tax credit to save them some money, which will also lift American children out of work to lower the cost of childcare, which is out of reach for too many working families today. And for too many people in the sandwich generation who are raising young children and taking care of a parent, juggling all of it is extremely difficult. You know, I took care of my mother when she got sick, cooking food that she had a taste for, finding clothes that would not irritate her skin. And understand, as I do, that caregiving is about dignity. It is about dignity. And currently, if you need home care and you don't have some money to hire someone, you and your family need to deplete your savings to qualify for help. That's just not right. So we're going to change the approach and allow Medicare to cover the cost of home care so seniors can get the help and care they need in their own homes. Now, Donald Trump has a different approach. He tried to cut Medicare and Social Security every year he was president. Look, I believe that when people have worked hard their entire life, they deserve to retire with the benefits they have earned. And I believe in the fundamental freedom of Americans to make decisions about their own bodies and not have their government tell them what to do. I will fight to restore what Donald Trump and his hand-selected Supreme Court justices took away from the women of America. Today, 1 in 3 women in America, think about it, 1 in 3 women in America lives in a state with a Trump abortion ban, many with no exceptions even for rape and incest. The idea that a woman who survives a crime of a violation to her body should not have the authority to make a decision about what happens to her body next, that is immoral. That is immoral. And Trump's not done. He would ban abortion nationwide, restrict access to birth control and put IVF treatments at risk, and force states to monitor women's pregnancies. Just Google Project 2025 and read the plans for yourself. And look, I think we all know one does not have to abandon their faith or deeply held beliefs to simply agree the government should not be telling her what to do with her body. Not the government. And when Congress passes a bill to restore reproductive freedom nationwide, as President of the United States, I will proudly sign it into law. Proudly. And look, on another subject, politicians have got to stop treating immigration as an issue to scare up votes in an election. And instead, treat it as the serious challenge that it is that we must finally come together to solve. I will work with Democrats and Republicans to sign into law the border security bill that Donald Trump killed. When I was Attorney General of a border state, I saw the chaos and violence caused by transnational criminal organizations that I took on. And when I am president, we will quickly remove those who arrive here unlawfully, prosecute the cartels, and give Border Patrol the support they so desperately need. At the same time, we must acknowledge we are a nation of immigrants. Congress to pass immigration reform, including an earned path to citizenship for hardworking immigrants like farm workers and our dreamers. As Commander-in-Chief, I will make sure America has the strongest, most lethal fighting force in the world. Donald Trump, on the other hand, has shown his contempt for our nation's heroes, calls them suckers and losers, called a four-star Marine general a, quote, lowlife. I will always honor, never denigrate, the service and sacrifice of our troops and their families, and fulfill our sacred obligation to care for them. I will strengthen, not surrender, America's global leadership. And I will stand with our friends because I know that our alliances keep American people safe and make America stronger and more secure. Look, world leaders think that Donald Trump is an easy mark, easy to manipulate with flattery or favor. And you can believe that autocrats like Putin and Kim Jong-un are rooting for him in this election. I will always uphold our security, advance our national interest, and ensure that the United States of America remains, as we must forever be, a champion of liberty around the world. America, we know what Donald Trump has in mind. More chaos, more division, and policies that help those at the very top and hurt everyone else. I offer a different path, and I ask for your vote. And here is my pledge to you. I pledge to seek common ground and common sense solutions to make your life better. I am not looking to score political points. I am looking to make progress. I pledge to listen to experts, to those who will be impacted by the decisions I make, and to people who disagree with me. Unlike Donald Trump, I don't believe people who disagree with me are the enemy. He wants to put them in jail. I'll give them a seat at the table. I pledge to you to approach my work with the joy and optimism that comes from making a difference in people's lives. And I pledge to be a president for all Americans. And to always put country above party and self. I love our country with all my heart. And I believe in its promise because I've lived it. I grew up as a child of the Civil Rights Movement. My parents would take me to marches in a stroller, where crowds of people of all races, faiths, and walks of life came together to fight for the ideals of freedom and opportunity. I've lived the promise of America. I saw how hard our mother worked to give her daughters the same chances this country gave her. Growing up, I was blessed to have family by blood and family by love, who instilled in me the values of community, compassion, and faith that have always defined our nation at its best. I've lived the promise of America. I've spent my life fighting for the people who have been hurt and counted out, but never stopped believing that in our country, anything is possible. I've lived the promise of America. And I see the promise of America in all of you. In all of you. I see it in the young people who are voting for the first time, who are determined to live free from gun violence and to protect our planet and to shape the world they inherit. I see it in the women who refuse to accept a future without reproductive freedom, and the men who support them. I see it in Republicans who have never voted for a Democrat before, but have put the Constitution of the United States over party. I've seen it in Americans different in many respects, but united in our pursuit of freedom, our belief in fairness and decency, and our faith in a better future. America, I know the vast majority of us have so much more in common than what separates us. I know it. And that's why I am in this race, to fight for the people, just like I always have. Nearly 250 years ago, America was born when we wrested freedom from a petty tyrant. Across the generations, Americans have preserved that freedom, expanded it, and in so doing, proved to the world that a government of, by, and for the people is strong and can endure. And those who came before us, the patriots at Normandy and Selma, Seneca Falls and Stonewall, on farmlands and factory floors, they did not struggle, sacrifice, and lay down their lives only to see us cede our fundamental freedoms. To see us submit to the will of another petty tyrant. These United States of America, we are not a vessel for the schemes of wannabe dictators. The United States of America is the greatest idea humanity ever devised. A nation big enough to encompass all our dreams, strong enough to withstand any fracture or fissure between us, and fearless enough to imagine a future of possibilities. So, America, let us reach for that future. Let us fight for this beautiful country we love. And in 7 days, we have the power, each of you has the power to turn the page and start writing the next chapter in the most extraordinary story ever told. I thank you all. God bless you, and may God bless the United States of America. Thank you.
You just heard Vice President Kamala Harris speaking to an energized crowd. Her campaign saying about 72,000 people in attendance at the Ellipse and also there at the mall. In her closing argument, she said, in 1 week from today, you have a decision to make on your future. She said, it's a choice between whether you have a country rooted in freedom or ruled by chaos and division. Harris called Trump unstable and obsessed with revenge, consumed the grievance, and also unchecked power. She said he has an enemy enemies list of people he wants or expects to prosecute. She said, as Americans, we rise and fall together. Well, also happening right now, former President Donald Trump is holding a campaign rally in Allentown, Pennsylvania. Lehigh County, where Allentown is located, is home to about 34,000 Puerto Ricans. There are about 473,000 in the battleground state of Pennsylvania, a must-win state for both candidates. Now, the Trump campaign is working to clean up the backlash from his New York City rally on Sunday, where a comedian called Puerto Rico a, quote, floating island of garbage. Let's go ahead and listen into what Trump is saying right now.
50% tax, so they appraise it, you have to go out, borrow money, and they end up always like 80%, 82% of the time or something, they end up losing the farm. It turns out to be a nightmare. I got rid of the estate tax or the death tax, so you don't have that anymore. And she wants to get rid of that. She's a tough guy. She's a tough one. She destroyed the city of San Francisco, it's one of the greatest cities of the world. She destroyed it, and she worked with Gavin Newsom, one of the worst governors in history, to destroy California. And we're not going to let her destroy the United States of America. We're not going to let her. If Kamala gets 4 more years, your family will never, ever recover. And by the way, Michelle Obama was very nasty to me. Ooh. She was nasty. I've gone out of my way to be nice to Michelle. I've gone out of my way to be nice to Michelle. Never said a bad thing about her when other people didn't like her so much. And she hit me the other day because they're desperate. They don't want Trump back because we're going to turn this country around and show how bad they were and how incompetent they were. But she hit me. Now, the fake news doesn't care about that, but if I hit her, they'll say, oh, what a horrible thing it was. She can hit me, she can go, and she can say whatever the hell she wants. If I hit her just a little tiny bit, oh, he's a bully. He's a bully. Nah, she shouldn't have done that. That was a mistake. That was a mistake. Right, Mr. Wall? Can't do that. Can't do that stuff. If I win, we will quickly build the greatest economy in the history of the world. We will rapidly defeat inflation, and very simply, we will make America affordable again. We're going to make it affordable again. I will massively cut taxes for workers and small businesses, and we will have no tax on tips, no tax on overtime, and no tax on Social Security benefits for our seniors. Right? And I've just announced that I will support a tax credit for family caregivers who take care of a parent or a loved one. You know, these people are just not recognized. If they had to go through the hospital system, the people they're caring for, we wouldn't have hospitals. You could build hospitals every day in America. You wouldn't have enough. They take care of our country. They really do. And we're going to get them a big, beautiful tax credit. And they do it with love. No hospital could do the job. They do it with love. They have great love, and they take care of people. They're going to be, and they're entitled to it. They're entitled to it. They can't go out and work. They can't do it. They have to watch, and they have to stay home. Oftentimes, it's a beautiful but wounded soldier. Soldiers come back, and they're in bad shape, and their mother or their wife sometimes is incredible. Call them angels. They're angels that do this. The mothers, they take care of them. They have to take care of them. And we would have no hospital system that could do it. So they're entitled to it, right? We got so many other things we can do. We don't need that. We don't need that. You know, we have so much liquid gold down there. We'll drill so much. We'll knock the hell out of everything with that. I will also restore the SALT tax deduction. I don't know if you know what that means, but just trust me, it's a good thing. Most people have no idea. They say, what is SALT? You don't want to know about it. It's a big deduction, and your state got, you know, pretty battered by it. And we're going to restore it for you and for New York and for some other places. Starting on day one of my new administration, I will end Kamala's war on Pennsylvania energy, and we will frack, and drill, baby, drill. We're going to drill, baby, drill. I've only seen her 100 times saying, we will never frack again. We will never. We are going to stop fracking. We're not going to frack, 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 frack. We're not going to frack. We're never going to frack again. Then her polls, dropped to you only have 500,000 jobs in Pennsylvania, and the income is like you can never replace it. So she sees the polls. I think fracking would be a wonderful idea. She's such a phony, it makes you sick. And she's also crushing your energy industry with the vicious natural gas export ban. You're under this ban. It's the craziest thing. And it's costing your state a lot of money. Now, with me, one thing I'll never be stopping fracking. You know that. I've been very consistent for about 25 years. Drilling and fracking is good. I was with somebody from Saudi Arabia recently, one of the top people. I said, when you buy the 150 planes that you just bought, magnificent Boeing 777s, I said, where do you get your financing? He looks at me, financing? He didn't know what financing was. They don't finance, they have money. We have more oil and gas than they do. And you know what? If you include Anwar in Alaska, it's the biggest oil find in the world, as big as Saudi Arabia. And I opened it. Reagan couldn't get it done. He worked so hard. Nobody could get it done. I got it done. Then this guy, the biggest in the world, as big, they say, maybe as Saudi Arabia. And we could have taken care of all of Asia. We would have made so much money. This guy comes in. He doesn't know what the hell's going on. Where am I? Can't even find the stairs off a platform. And he tells you, no, he can't. Look, stair, like 4 stairs behind us. If you have to, you could jump off the front. You could probably. The guy can never find his way off. Secret Service has to come up and take him off. It's terrible. I will terminate the Green News scam, and I will cut your energy prices in half within 12 months. It'll be cut in half. And to bring back millions of jobs, we will give our companies the lowest taxes, the lowest energy costs, the lowest regulatory burdens, and free access to the best and biggest market on the planet. The problem is, if we had more of these idiots running our country, you won't have a big and best market anymore, because we're a nation in decline. We're going to turn that around. So you're going to be so proud of this country. And within 12 months of us taking over, you're going to be so proud of this country. But we're only going to treat. Thank you. Thank you. While you guys were shouting, I was checking out my hair. Not that bad. Not that bad. I'm looking for a little skin, and then I don't see it tonight. I'm very happy. I'm very happy. Not bad. No. Not bad. Not the greatest. Thank you very much. This is a feisty little crowd, isn't it? I wish the fake news would show the crowd. You could go to the far reaches of the place. The stadium is massive. But they don't want to do that. They never want to do it because they're fake. They don't want to do it. There's never been anything like it. And we're going to stop with the joking. I'm going to tell you, it's sort of sad. We've been on this journey together. Almost every one of us has started together, right? And we've been doing it for 9 years. This is the final week. We're 7 days. Now we'll be 6 days tomorrow. And when you think about it, we've created the greatest movement in the history, probably of mankind, but certainly within the United States. MAGA, Make America Great Again. There's never been anything like it. We never have empty seats. We go to the biggest arena. Look, we go to Madison Square Garden. Everyone said, oh, that's so big. We could have filled it up 6, 7, 8 times with all the people trying to get in. Who ever thought? It's the greatest political movement in the history of our country, and maybe, especially if we win, this will be the greatest movement, I think, in the history of the world, okay? It's never been anything like it. And we're going to miss these giant rallies. I love the rallies. Sometimes they'll have me do like a Q&A. I'd get to a place, and there'll be a Q&A, and I'll say, gee, I love those rallies. I don't know, it invigorates all of us, right? Everyone here. And we're only going to be doing them for like a few more days, and then we have a different kind of get-together. We're going to have a get-together where we're going to talk about all the good things we're doing. It's going to be a very positive thing. But this is something that's been a special journey for all of us. I think for all of us. You have people that have been to hundreds of these. You have people that have been, you have the front row Joes, they've been to everyone. I think, look at these guys. They've been to everyone, and it's just special. And, you know, all my geniuses backstage, they think it's them. Oh, they did. I said, take a regular guy, take a regular politician, let's see how many. So what's going to happen is in 4 years, somebody's going to be running for president. They're going to hire these guys because they think they're great. And they're going to come and they're going to do a rally, and there'll be about 300 people show up. Because that's the standard. If you took the greatest politician in the United States in history and you said, we're going to make a speech in Pennsylvania tonight, you'd have 300, 200, maybe 400 people if they were great. We get every time 25, 30, 40,000 people, 100,000 people in Butler. 110,000 people in California, where the elections are so rigged, it's disgusting. We were out there. We had 110,000 people in California 3 weeks ago, 110,000. We had in New Jersey 107,000 people. But that Butler rally was something special, I would tell you. That was something. That was special for a lot of reasons. And if these companies don't make their products here, then they will pay a very stiff tariff when they send their products into the United States for the privilege of competing with our workers and our protected companies. We're going to protect our companies, and we're going to protect through very strong tariffs. We're going to protect our whole system. And by the way, China does it and others do it. But we can do it better because we have a better product. We have a better product. The product is the USA. We have a great product. And we'll also pass the Trump Reciprocal Trade Act. That means if China or any other country, it's not only China, it's everybody ripping us off. We changed it a lot. We changed it a lot. We renegotiated South Korea's deal, Japan's deal. We were in the process of the European Union. I'll tell you what, the European Union sounds so nice, so lovely, right? All the nice European little countries, they get together. They're brutal. They don't take our cars. They don't take our farm products. They sell millions and millions of cars in the United States. No. They are going to have to pay a big price. And, you know, just like I stopped that plant that was going to be built in Mexico, biggest plant in the world going to be built. And I said, and I was in Detroit at the Economic Forum, at the Economic Club, and I said, they're going to build the biggest plant there. It's going to wipe out all of Michigan. Michigan is, we're way up tonight in Michigan. You know why? Because of things like that. Because if they built that plant, then Detroit and Michigan as a whole, I don't think they made as many cars as this one monster plant that was owned by China. It was near the border. They were going to make millions of cars and just keep sending them into our country and destroy our jobs, destroy our whole market. We already lost about 65% from the heyday. We're going to bring it back to the heyday. We're going to bring it back, and we can do it so easily and so smartly. And I said, I'm going to put tariffs on those cars. And if 100% isn't enough, I'll make it to it. They're not going to have one car come into the United States. They'll be sitting there with all these cars and never coming in because all they're going to do is destroy our automobile manufacturing business. And you know what happened? Today, the guy that built it, the other day, he calls me up. I see him. I say, what's happening with that plant? He's the biggest builder of these auto plants. I said, I want to see one. He said, you'll have to come to Mexico. I said, I want to go to Mexico. I want to see one here. He said, we're not building them in the United States. We're building them in Mexico. I said, who owns them? China. I see, so China now, in order to save the trip, is going to build them and then really knock the hell out of a car, which they're doing in Europe, by the way. They're killing them in Europe. He said, not going to happen. I said, I don't want to see it. I don't have to see it. How big is it? He said, the biggest in the world. I said, all right, let them know that I'm putting a 100% tariff on every car that they make. And if that's not enough, I'll double it. And I forgot about it. This was about 6-7 months ago, and I forgot about it. Then I was making a speech the other day, and I see the same guy. He's the biggest builder of auto plants. That's all he wants to do is, if you told him build an apartment, he wouldn't know how to do it. But an auto plant, fully computerized. I see him at the speech that I'm making in Detroit, and I call him over after I finish. I said, John, let me ask you, how's that big monster doing in Mexico? He said, oh, sir, they canceled it last week because they think you're going to be elected president and you're going to put tariffs on. How about that? Is that beautiful? They canceled it. But if Kamala got in, they would restart it very quickly, believe me. She doesn't exactly think too much about that stuff, does she? If China or any other countries charge us a 100 or 200% tax, then we will charge them. This is the reciprocal act that we're calling it. I'll put my name on it if they want, or I'll leave my name off. I couldn't care less, but we're going to have a reciprocal tax, and we're going to charge them the same 100 or 200% tariff or tax. Called an eye for an eye. And all of the ripoff will stop immediately. I will never apologize for defending America, but isn't that a beautiful story with the plant? I mean, if Michigan didn't vote, wouldn't I be surprised? We have a big lead in Michigan, by the way, a very big lead. We have a big lead in Arizona. We have a big lead, and the fake news won't tell you, but you'll see it hopefully on Tuesday night. But by the way, you got to get out and vote, otherwise I would be very embarrassed. This is all subject to you voting. You vote. It's not, we don't have a problem in the world. But great, we're doing great in Nevada. We're doing great in Arizona. We're doing great, really good in North Carolina. How about the people of North Carolina? They showed up to vote in record numbers, and the place was practically demolished by Hurricane Helene. I was worried about that. I said, North Carolina, we thought maybe 50%, maybe 40 or 30% would show up. More people showed up to vote for this election than any election in the history of North Carolina. Is that right, thus far? Can you believe it? They set a record. And they're voting for Trump. But I'll protect our workers. I'll protect our jobs. I will protect our borders. I will protect our families. And I will protect the birthright of our children to live in the richest and most powerful nation on the face of the earth. And as we rescue our economy, I will also restore our borders. Over the past 4 years, Kamala orchestrated the most egregious betrayal that any leader in American history has inflicted upon its people. She allowed this to happen to us. She allowed us to be invaded. We were invaded. This was a massive invasion of criminals. She has violated her oath, eradicated our sovereign border, and unleashed an army of migrant gangs who are waging a campaign of violence and terror against our citizens. It's vicious what's happening. They're killing our people. Kamala has imported criminal migrants from prisons and jails, insane asylums and mental institutions from all around the world, from Venezuela to the Congo. Oh, the Congo. They're supplying lots. They're taking them out of their jails. They're opening up their jails and they're busing them. They can't get enough buses, frankly, because I'm shocked. Venezuela is only about 60% empty. Do you know that Venezuelan crime is down 72%? You know why? Because their criminals are being taken into the United States of America. It's like I said this, the press gave me a hard time on this one. They said it was very, no, I don't think it's disrespectful. It's like we're a giant garbage can. That's what they treat us like. And these are killers. These are drug dealers. These are gangs, gang members. These are some of the worst people. These are terrorists. And they're treating us and dumping. They're dumping like we're a dumping ground. And it includes savage criminals who assault, rape, and murder our women and our girls. And then they say, oh, my people said, sir, please don't say that. What? You're going to protect the women. It sounds very like, I said, well, don't they want protection? I think they want protection. No, don't they? Sir, it doesn't sound good. Doesn't sound good. I'm going to protect our women from criminals coming into our country and going up to the suburbs and doing really bad things. We're going to protect our men, our women, our children. We're going to protect our country. 100% protect our country. But they said it sounds terrible. It sounds so terrible when you say they can take care of themselves. No. When you see MS-13 coming through your front door, you're not taking care of yourself. And your husband's not going to take care of you too good either, believe me. And she wants to take your guns away. We're not taking your guns away ever. Are there any women in this
You heard former President Donald Trump speaking at a rally in Allentown, Pennsylvania, a must-win state for both candidates. Well, joining me now, Spectrum News national political reporter Taylor Popolars and political anchor Alex Cohen. Taylor, Trump's rally, similar to the other rallies we've heard. Taylor, is he getting Puerto Rican backlash from the Madison Square Garden rally, where a comedian called Puerto Rico a, quote, floating island of garbage? We're still talking about this a couple days after. Trump, by the way, called that rally on Sunday an absolute love fest.
Today, I want to learn to hear directly from a mother whose world has been shattered.
That's right, Sharon, and he just repeated a short time ago that he felt that it was one of the greatest evenings in political history, and he was talking a lot about the crowd that showed up at Madison Square Garden. But so far, at least, and he's been speaking for about 45 minutes, he has not yet commented on that comedian's remark about Puerto Rico. In terms of pushback, though, as you alluded to, we're in Allentown, Pennsylvania, about an hour and a half north of Philly, and it's in Lehigh County, which has the second largest Puerto Rican population in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. And I've been here for the last 2 days, and I've spoken with a lot of people who have been hovering around this section of downtown talking about this. A lot of Puerto Rican Republican Trump supporters who were offended by the remark and kind of frustrated with it, but insisted to me they're still going to support Trump. And then some independents and Democratic voters who are Puerto Rican who said that they are backing Harris because of this, or they're motivated to support her even more because of this and because they feel insulted. So there were several warm-up speakers here who kind of put out a point of pride about their Puerto Rican heritage and who talked about that and said that Puerto Rico is a beautiful place and we celebrate it here, but nobody's specifically spoken about Tony Hinchcliffe's remarks, but it's kind of been hanging over this, and so far Trump himself has not talked about it. He did say at a roundtable event in another part of Pennsylvania earlier today that in his opinion he feels that no other president has done more for Puerto Rico than him, but that's been his only comment so far.
All right, and Alex, I want to ask you a question. There are nearly 1 million Puerto Ricans in battleground states. Potential big impact here.
Absolutely there is, and we've seen quite a number of Puerto Rican celebrities, the likes of Bad Bunny, coming out and showing their support, and all of this happened, the remarks made in Madison Square Garden shortly after, was quite, in many ways, a coincidence after the vice president released her economic plan for Puerto Rico. So it'll be very interesting to see. I also think it's kind of fascinating, as Taylor just mentioned, the former former president did not mention those remarks made. However, he did recall the remarks that he made at another rally calling this country a garbage can. And I think that seems quite close and will probably remind folks out there of what was said at Madison Square Garden. It might raise some questions, even though Donald Trump said he didn't know this comedian, that he wasn't aware of this. I wonder just how much distance he's actually putting between himself and these remarks.
Yeah, that's a very good point there. All right, Taylor, in Harris's closing arguments about half an hour ago on the Ellipse in Washington, D.C., she said she will work tirelessly for Americans and work with everyone. However, Trump is trying to turn the tables on Harris, calling her hateful.
She not only failed, not me, she failed my daughter. She failed Jocelyn.
Well, that's right, and it's something that we heard from many of the warm-up speakers here, too. Florida Senator Marco Rubio is here, and he's a Cuban-American, and he was brought here specifically to not only talk about Trump's agenda, but to kind of counter this controversy around Puerto Rico. And he said repeatedly that he views the Harris campaign as one of the nastiest, most hate-filled closing message campaigns in political history. Very, very strong words. Trump himself talks about that all the time. He has a line at these rallies where he says, "We need to fire Kamala Harris. Kamala, you're fired." And the crowd goes crazy, reckoning back to his days hosting The Apprentice. So it was a striking contrast to be listening to Harris's speech and then being here for Trump's, because there really are two different messages. While Harris was saying, "I don't want to jail my enemies and I want people to have a seat at the table," Trump has been talking about that constantly on the trail. And he's made clear during this rally, kind of touching on his usual points, that he considers Democrats to kind of be the enemy from within, as he's been saying recently on the trail, and he's kind of sticking to his usual script. There doesn't seem to be a strategy from Trump to reach out to folks who already aren't in his camp, except if they are frustrated about things like the economy and immigration and want to give him a chance this time around, his third time running. So it's a really interesting contrast.
It really is interesting contrasts. All right, Alex, Harris spoke at the Ellipse, as I mentioned a few moments ago, the place where former President Donald Trump held the infamous rally on January 6th before his supporters stormed Capitol Hill. Is January 6th still on the minds of voters?
I think it absolutely is. And I've certainly heard from Republican voters who have voted for Trump, not once, but twice before, who said that January 6th was just the last straw for them and no longer will be voting for Trump this time around. What I think is so fascinating going into this event that the vice president held tonight is a couple of things. Note that where she needs to win are these battleground states, not Washington, D.C. And so it was a very interesting choice to spend one of her final nights there. And I think a lot of people wondered if she harps too much on that message about January 6th, is that really the right closing argument to make? I think what we heard earlier this evening was her talking about that at first, making that case, but more than anything, it seemed to be much more than just a speech about January 6th. I was really struck by just how casual in many ways and personable of a speech it was, considering upwards of 72,000 people gathered there.